Hi, it's Grover from PhotoShelter, and we've got another installment of In the Bag here, and I'm with the legendary David Burnett.
Does that make this my legendary bag? Where does the legend end?
The legend
Where does it start?
will live on forever. But David has been, and I don't want to make it sound like you're old or anything.
It's all right. I can deal with it.
I've been like a huge admirer of you and your work for like forever. So like even in college, I was like, man, this guy is amazing. How does he do what he does? Some of the stuff that I really think is great about you is that there always seems like there's this pack of photographers shooting something from like one particular predictable angle, and you're always like off somewhere else, and you get like another shot, usually with the photographers in it or something. You're always
trying anyway.
Always new stuff, always a different angle. You're not afraid to kind of like go and do something different. Extremely admirable. Likewise, your gear, and I've been wanting to get into this bag for quite some time because I know there's some wacky stuff
Top secret.
In here. Yeah. Totally wacky stuff in here. I've seen you're very you like to experiment, and it's really fun to watch all your stuff. So
well, it's fun when the experiments work. They don't always work out, but that's why they're experiments, and you kind of see what does work out and what becomes at least vaguely predictable, and then vaguely is pretty much where it is, because with a lot of this stuff, even now, it's kind of a crapshoot. It's still fun, you know. It's like we're also used to like shooting and looking at the back of the camera and then correcting. When you have to wait for it to get the film to get processed and wait for your contact sheets, there's still an excitement seeing those contact sheets the first time, or the slides, or whatever it might be. It really is a it still leaves the juicing up factor pretty good.
So you're still in love with film?
You know, I'm embarrassed to say I haven't shot a roll of 35 color for probably a couple of years. That's the one that just turned into digital, and then a little bit of 120, but even that's mostly black and white, and then in 4 or 5 it's kind of equally black and white and color.
Well, we don't even have to open the bag to see what's sitting on top of it.
The old trusty Holga. You know, the best thing about this camera, the most fun with it, I mean, it takes amazing pictures sometimes, but when you'll be with a bunch of sort of photo enthusiasts and they'll look at it, and you can kind of see this querulous look on their eyes for a minute. It's like, what is that?
Yeah.
And then when you just kind of drop it in their hand and it doesn't weigh them down, you know, it weighs like about 4 ounces or something. I have hamburgers regularly that weigh more than this. And yet, what it does is amazing. It just, it gives you a nice sweet spot in the center, and the edges are a little ooh, and it's a very different kind of picture than you would get with almost any other 6x6 camera.
Do you use this camera like on assignments, or?
Oh yeah, I try and take, you know, I try and take it everywhere. I don't always do that. Sometimes I'm just like, okay, I got to go just shoot X, and I'll go do X. But I always like to have it as a way of just letting me experiment, even if it's just for 5 minutes or 2 minutes at the end of a shoot. I did one thing a couple of years ago. I did it almost worked out really well. You know, it's like all these almost, but Time magazine asked me to photograph the 10 best senators. And so I shot it mainly 4:5, and I guess I'm sure, you know, I'm this hybrid guy. I know I shot it all digital. I've got everything shot with, at that point it would have maybe been either a 5D or my 20D. And then I shot, with each senator, I shot 1 frame on this camera. And then just, you know, you hope their eyes are open. You know, 1 frame, and so that contact sheet basically was the whole story.
Nice.
It didn't, I mean, I needed 12 senators. You know, you need to fill out the whole frame, and we didn't quite, you know, sometimes it almost works and it doesn't quite work, but stuff like that I find really is what keeps me interested and having fun with it. If I just had to do the same old all the time, I don't think it would be as much fun. I think everybody needs to have a camera where your lens choices are mountain, extended family, your best buddies, and one dude. It's really, it makes it for a pretty quick,
well, that's
you
so
know, the
fun.
decision making is pretty snappy.
That's so much fun. And it's all, you've got to tape it up and...
Yeah, I tape it just to keep the, I was photographing the Secretary of the Interior a couple of years ago, Gail Norton, and we'd gone outside on this little terrace by her office, and you know, I've got my a 20D, and I probably had a Reflex at that point or something, some other oddball camera, and I had this hanging around my neck, and I didn't have the clips which keep the back on. They weren't taped down. Sometimes I get really good and I tape it all up, and sometimes I just do it. And she said, "Oh, what's that camera?" And I said, "Oh, this is a a Holga." And I went to just do that, and the back fell off, and the film came out. It's like, so it's not a, you know, it's not without its imperfections, but the imperfections are what make it kind of fun. So inside the bag.
Let's get in this bad boy.
So this is a think tank, put your entire house in it roller bag.
So there's two kinds of rollers. They have the airport.
This is the airport bag, and then there's the international airport bag, which I probably should use. It's a little tinier and less fighting with airline personnel about getting it in the overhead bag. But amazingly enough, I did last week have a fight with, I tried to carry it on, and they said, "That's too bad, that bag is too big, you can't go on." And I took a couple of magazines and a couple of 4x5 holders out, and it actually fit in the damn thing. I thought never in a million years is it going to fit, and all of a sudden it fit. So, surprise, surprise, Sergeant Carter. So here's
the other thing about this bag that I really like, the wheels. They're like, I don't know what they've done, but like, you know how you get a bag and you know the wheels get kind of rinky-dinky. I have the international version of this, and I have dragged it all over the place and up sidewalks, and I've been really tough on it. And the wheels are still like perfectly in line. It's like when you hit a smooth bit of floor, it's just like,
oh yeah, and you can't believe that it's that easy to schlep something that weighs this much. This probably weighs 35 pounds. Now, you know, you could find heavier camera bags, but 35 pounds if you're going up and down stairs, or if you're going, you know, oh, you ended up at the train station that doesn't have the elevator or something. I mean, sooner or later you're looking up and it's like Mount Everest, and you've got to get the bag up there. But the wheels really are great. I was a real latecomer to wheeled bags, but I'm happy to say this thing has just saved my life any number of times.
It saved my back for sure.
Yeah.
All right, what's this monster?
Well, good things come in big packages. Hi-ya! This is about a 1950 Pacemaker speed graphic, serial number 867382.
Now, where did you get this?
I don't know where I actually got this one. I've now owned about 8 or 9 of them, and I found them on eBay over the years where I've met collectors or at a camera show or something, and it is a simple camera, but when you look at the design engineering for what it was in the 1930s and the 40s and the 50s, it's so sublime you can't imagine how great it is. What's cool about it is that it has, on the back here, you've got a ground glass so you can see, you know, and basically you look up here and you can see what the lens is going to see, but only if you have a lens on there. So this is a 1943 Kodak Aero-Ektar, 178 millimeter f2.5. It was designed for a K-24 aerial camera, which was used in B-17s and P-38s during World War II, and they would put them in these big cameras that had a 12-volt electrical system with a giant strip of 5-inch wide film, and they'd fly over German territory or enemy territory, wherever it happened to be, and they would hit the button, and this camera would just run this 5-inch film through, and they'd get all these amazing pictures. So after the war, a lot of these lenses found their way into the press, and it kind of disappeared. I mean, I had trouble finding out when I first started shooting 4x5 in 2003. I still had the little lens that came with the camera, similar to this one. This is how most people would see these lenses. Like this is an older Voigtlander, but
huge difference.
But there's just like a little lens here, and it's f4.7, and it's quite sharp, and it fits on here, and that would be how you'd shoot. I also have what is a Cambo, which is they make view camera gear. It's a reflex back. It's a mirror with a little magnifier, and I've got it fixed up so that it just snaps on here. And now it really is like a Rolleiflex. Like if you look through here, now you really,
sweet.
And now you can just go right to focus.
Yeah.
Right? It goes, it's out and then it's in. And that may not be it, but it's basically, it's astonishing because all that stuff with throw the black cloth over your head and all that kind of stuff, I mean, that basically is out the window. I look through here and I'm just crank it out and bang, I'm sharp on the camera.
So what now, what have
By
you
the way,
shot with
you
this?
shouldn't really be doing this because it's way too much work.
What have you shot with this?
Well, I did the last 2 Olympic Games, Athens and Beijing. Athens, I made a really nice bunch of pictures in Athens that I would say I probably wouldn't have made without it. You know, I've done a lot of sports. I do a lot of portraiture with it. I did the whole of the story I did on the aftermath in New Orleans after Katrina 4 years ago. I shot everything. You know, I've got a Digicam and this, and sometimes I'll also be out there maybe with a Mamiya 6 shooting some 120 or the Holga. It's like a lot of individual cameras to worry about, but somehow each moment has some particular quality to it that pulls me to one camera or the other.
All right, well, let's look at something cool and modern.
Well, modern. I mean, relatively modern. I'm still a Mark I 5D guy. I have a
5D, that's...
Yeah, this is the 5D without Mark II. This is just still camera.
So this is, what is this?
These are both...
Oh, 2 5Ds.
Yeah, 2 5Ds. I find these are great workhorse cameras, but you know, obviously a camera is only as good as the lens that goes on it. I am a guy who likes fast glass.
That's an 85 1.2?
So an 85 1.2 Canon.
That is awesome.
It's a little heavy.
Yeah, but wow.
But it's beautiful. And, you know, just put it on
now the
here.
depth of field in that must be killer.
It's such that you almost never get it right. Even on autofocus. I mean, it's, this is another key thing. On my 5Ds, and I don't know what the situation is with the 5D Mark IIs or the 7Ds really, but this camera is shipped with a focusing screen that as long as all you ever did was to use autofocus, it was okay, but you couldn't manually focus with the screens that came in the 5D. But they made an auxiliary screen for about 25 bucks, which was the best 25 bucks. The sharpness of my pictures just skyrocketed after I put them in there. And I can't remember what the screen is called, but it's basically designed to be accurate for manually focusing. Because the way they cut these original screens, everything kind of looks in focus most of the time. And you have to really be out of focus for it to not look sharp. So that it's, if you really want to know if you're tack or not, I do a lot of tweaking. I trust the autofocus, but I also, you know, it's like Ronald Reagan and the Russians, trust but verify. And I do a lot of verifying with the, just want to make sure that it's sharp on somebody's eye or something. Yeah. And I find that these screens have really increased my ability to be sharp when I'm doing that. But I love that 85. It's a beautiful portrait lens. And I probably use it, I don't know if I use it at 1.2 all the time. Probably my average exposure is like 1.6.
I've seen a lot of prime lenses here in your bag.
Yeah. Well, I have.
I
didn't bring the. I mean, I own them and I use them a lot. The 70-200 and the 24-70. But there's something nice about just paring it down and keeping the speed. This is a 135 f2. It's very sharp, wide open. And I don't know, I love having the speed, or at least the capability of having the speed. I don't always shoot at f2, but it's nice to know that you've got it if you need it. This is another favorite. And this one I probably use, I would say, more than the 85 1.2. This is the 50 1.2.
See, that lens, I'm with you on this. I love that thing.
It's really great. And it has, you can, I mean, it's funny how you can look at pictures and know that it was shot with this lens. It's funny, little simple.
I've shot stuff with that
reportage.
Lens and people just, they're like, what did you do? How did you get
I know,
that look?
What's the look, right? And it's got a look, and there's no doubt about it. And when you're shooting with it, it's pretty quick to use. It goes right to focus, and particularly in the 5D with this other focusing screen, I can really be sure that I've got that eye sharp that I want sharp.
Yeah.
Because the thing about these lenses is if it isn't sharp, it's not a picture. You know? I mean, you can say that about anything, but at 1.2, you really magnify the imperfection.
Right.
I do a lot of architectural work. Oh wait, no I don't. This is the 45 tilt shift. And actually I did some stuff recently down at the Kennedy Space Center where I wanted to clean up the lines on the vehicle assembly building. And just like, there they go. It's astonishing what you can do with this camera. And basically on a day that I'm feeling like I don't want to schlep the 4x5, but I want to have a little bit of that angular tilt shift look, I'll just take one of these. And this is beautiful. It's manual focus. There's a 24. I don't use that quite as much, although the people that have the 17, there's a new 17 tilt shift. Apparently it's beautiful. And then I have the 90. So the 45 and the 90 are both tilt shift, and they're just, the great thing about these things is at a cocktail party, you come in with your lens looking like that, people will always, I shouldn't have had that third martini. But it just kind of, you know, it just opens up a little way of, without overdoing it, of adding a little creativity to the mix. I mean, I use it also as a portrait lens, so I know that if I line up 5 people, 5 lawyers or whatever, that I can crank this just enough so that everybody's sharp. Or I go the other way and only the one in the middle's sharp.
Yeah.
And the point is, it lets you make that decision, and you're not stuck with just doing it with the old straight lens thing like we did for so many years. I mean, every time I take some crappy assignment, and you know, there's probably more crappy assignments in this world than there are good ones. But one reason I like to try and take all the gear with me is that I want to force myself to find something in that crappy assignment. It was like it's a photo class at school, and okay, it happens that you're photographing the Secretary of the Interior or whoever it happens to be, but try and do something with it that's just like you're exploring something, not just for the editor and what they think they want. You know, use it as an excuse to find a way to make a picture that nobody made before.
How often do you find that you kind of go off and do your own thing, almost just for yourself personally, for fun, and then it turns up, hey, we like that, we want to use that? I mean,
well, when I started with the 4.5, I was just doing a few little events in Washington. It was just at the beginning of the Iraq War, and I decided I wasn't going to go to Iraq, but I wanted to try and do some things in Washington that were maybe the same old events, but with a slightly different look to them. And every time, you know, this was in 2003, so it's 6-7 years ago, I'd make a picture, I'd go to a congressional hearing, I'd follow a candidate for an afternoon, just on my own nickel locally. I didn't have a lot of money behind me to do this. And I'd develop the stuff, and I'd make 1 or 2 scans. I'd send it to the 3 magazines that I mainly worked with, and I'd just say, I know you probably don't want to, you know, you've got art for this article, but I just want you to see what I'm up to. Every time I did that, I made a deal for that picture with one magazine or the other.
That's cool.
And that kind of just took off, and that actually what kind of made Time Magazine decide to put me back on contract, because I'd been with Time on contract back in the 70s, and then when I started Contact Press Images, I didn't really worry about having a magazine contract so much. And they were just, they really liked the material, so it was like, well, we love what you're doing, and we would prefer you do it for us than for anybody else. So it really has, it's been fun, and I find that half the joy in all the shooting I do is to just keep trying to figure out something that I didn't do yet, and do it in a different way. Well,
you haven't seemed to run out yet, so.
We're still pedaling that bike, darn it.
It's great to watch, and I really appreciate you coming here to New York.
Well, thanks.
Just to sit down and let me kind of look through
the bag. I need a helium bag that goes in here and kind of makes it about 10 pounds lighter. But the helium connector.
Hey, Doug.
We're on to something here, Doug. The helium pack.
All right. Well, thank you very much for coming.
Anytime.
Always fun to be with you.
Thanks, Grover.